Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today we are welcome Lori Marini and Felicia White, who are presenting on Beyond the Job Post, Why Posting and Praying Isn't a Recruiting Strategy. Welcome, Lori and Felicia.
Thank you, Tara. Good afternoon, everyone. And as we get started, you may, for those of you who are who are on video and see the screen, you might see my background here. That's just a subtle nod to a upcoming event we have in Louisville. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later this afternoon. But just a reminder there as we get started. And so today's topic is really interesting to cover, and it gives us the opportunity to really have a chance to flex our training muscles. And whether you're a recruiter, if for your company you're responsible for recruiting, or you write training that involves recruiting, maybe you have to prepare training programs for managers or field operators that covers that process, or you just simply want to get this information and help to share it with your HR team, this is going to be a perfect example for you. And I love this title, Why Posting and Praying is a Recruiting Strategy. I myself, admittedly, have been guilty in the past of posting and praying. But thanks to my friend Lori here, I have seen the light. And I have changed my ways and and you'll find out all of the tips that she has to share that'll help you be able to do the same in changing your ways and being able to go beyond the posting and praying aspects. And so I want to introduce you to Lori and just tell you a little bit about who she is and what she does and why she's such an expert in on this particular topic. Lori Marini is a finder of keepers. I love that phrase, by the way, too. Lori launched Marini Executive Search LLC in 2021 after 20 years of experience in executive search roles for major brand companies. She has always been passionate about finding the perfect talent for her clients and prides herself on her enthusiasm for sourcing, engaging, and speaking with client candidates from literally all over the globe. Lori has embraced hiring challenges throughout her career is executing innovative sourcing strategies to fill domestic and international positions within tight timeframes and without sacrificing quality. Now, I'll say I met Lori through a recruiting process itself, and I'll tell you more about that in a second, but she literally has sourced and connects with people everywhere. She's been an instrumental resource in hiring managers, ensuring that their workforce needs are understood and presenting them with top-notch talent. As a result, she builds long-lasting and strong relationships with clients and candidates. Now, each client relationship is built on mutual respect and trust that she will find the talent to hire and keep. And so when you sign on to work with Lori, especially those of you if you have that need, you will find your keeper by working with her. Now, these long-lasting relationships that Lori has, I'm a testament to that. We have been connected for another years. I'll just say more than 10.
Yes, it's WWF.
We're meeting at a WFF
WFF.
conference, but I also ended up actually going through a process of recruiting for a role. Didn't actually end up taking the role, but I gained a lifelong friend as a result in connection and someone who I've been able to learn a great deal from throughout the years. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Lori, to introduce yourself and maybe add a little bit more to that, and let's get into the content.
Sure. Yeah. Nice to meet everybody. Thanks for joining. And thank you for such a lovely introduction, Felicia. Yeah, I always tell when I come across your name, I'm like, gosh, we've met so many years ago and just kind of kept in touch. And that's a little bit kind of like what we'll talk about during this webinar too, is like the fact that building relationships and keeping those relationships strong can really take you places. So, and it took me here. This is actually my first webinar I've ever done. So I'm really excited. Like I said, I've been on my own for 4 years. I absolutely love it. I love sourcing and I love finding the perfect person to fill an opportunity. That's why I kind of came up with Finder of Keepers. And it can mean a lot of different things. To my husband, it means catching a fish, finding and keeping it. So we both have our little Finder of Keeper areas there, but mine is candidates, which I absolutely love engaging with. So that's a little bit about me. So beyond the job post, why posting and praying isn't a recruiting strategy. So recruiting talent in today's competitive market demands more than just job postings. If your company's strategy revolves around posting and praying, you're likely missing out on a significant portion of the workforce. This outdated approach often fails to attract the best candidates. And I'll explain that a little bit later as well. So this leaves companies with unfilled positions or unqualified candidates or applicants. Recruiting is no longer about only filling roles. It's about building relationships, fostering engagement. And during this webinar, I'll give you some tips and tricks to rethink your recruiting strategy and get involved with your TA team, whether you're part of the hiring process as an interviewer or hiring manager, and how to take a more proactive approach. Because I do understand, like a lot of folks that are on this webinar, you may not be recruiters or be part of the TA team. But if you're a manager, you're part of a panel, you're interviewing somebody, you kind of are part of that recruiting strategy in a sense. Okay. So off to the next. So did you know that 70% of the workforce is not actively looking for a job? So if you or your team only rely on job postings, you're missing out on a massive pool. So 70, and it's 130%. So only 30% of the workforce is actively job searching. So this means, and I'll talk a lot about passive candidates, that 70% of passive candidates are out there ready to be contacted and engaged with for positions that might be a great fill for you. So they're not applying, but they could be open to a right opportunity. It's just all about how you outreach and how you engage. So why sourcing and networking are essential. So top talent isn't just waiting for your job post. They need to be identified, engaged, and nurtured, like I just kind of mentioned. But building relationships with passive candidates ensures the access to the best talent before they even consider a career move. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So I want to emphasize that recruiting is a two-way street. Great hires happen when companies invest in sourcing, networking, and hiring manager involvement. So when I say like hiring managers need to get involved, it is one of the things that I always strive to do when working with candidates and companies. I think it's very important that a hiring manager, I just was talking to Felicia earlier about, sometimes you have to tell a hiring manager, like the person just accepted the offer, send them a text, an email, give them a call saying, welcome to the team. Or even if your recruiter made an offer, hey, I heard that you just got the offer. I'm super excited about it. It takes 2 minutes to really make an impact. And that has happened with me, that candidates have been super impressed that a hiring manager called them to say, hey, I heard you just got the offer. Great news. I hope you accept. If you have any questions, I'm here. That makes a world of difference. They call me and say, I can't believe that they, reached out. Like they say in life, it's the small things that really matter.
Lori, you mentioned about the sourcing and networking piece of that, and I think back to years ago when one of the first times I had to hire for somewhat of a large role on my team, and thinking back on my past quote unquote sins of posting and praying. Working with the internal team at that particular organization, posted the job and just received tons and tons of resumes and people interested in a role, but there was some specific niche skills that we were looking for, and no one really quite fit that. And so when I had gone through and then was able to think back on that networking piece, I reached out to a few vendor partners that I worked with that I knew utilized that particular software. And sure enough, through those calls and conversations, that is where I ended up being able to get the candidate. It went from being 2-3 months of just sifting through resumes, not quite a fit, not quite a fit, to within 30 days, we interviewed and actually made an offer, and the individual accepted that role. So that's just a great example that I think they're getting involved and really making those calls and thinking outside of the box as far as the networking piece of that to get that role filled.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great example of why networking really matters. It took a very short time for you to reach out to those vendors, and then to get qualified candidates that actually had that experience in that niche that you were looking for. Good job, Felicia. So what's the problem with post and pray? I don't, I know I only have a certain amount of time, but posting and praying definitely drives me crazy because I've experienced it with companies that I've worked with before. You'll say, "Oh, do you have any candidates for the role?" And they're like, "No, nobody's applying." And it's like, well, if you keep doing that, they're just not going to pop into the applicant tracking system. You have to engage. And that's why, I mean, don't get me wrong. When you post the position on the career site or LinkedIn or whatever you do, sometimes you're going to get a really good qualified candidate. So yes, you do have to go through those applicants and that, your applicant tracking system or whatever you use. But it might only these postings might only attract 30% of the folks that are looking for jobs in the workforce, and that's being generous, because if 30% are looking for a job, 10 or 15% might not even be on LinkedIn where you're posting the position, or like going to your job site. So you really need to think outside the box here. So plus, there's so many job postings now, and there's a lot of noise on LinkedIn. I feel like lately it's kind of got away from a little bit of strictly like work related. It's very like social now too. So a lot of job postings just get lost in the mix too. So you might not even see them. Another thing that if you just post and pray on like an internal, your company website, is that many applicants might not be qualified. And I can say from experience that I worked for Dunkin' Brands corporate, and we would put a marketing position. Everybody wants to work marketing Dunkin'. And everybody that has a Facebook page could think that they are a marketing person. So we got like 1,000, we'd get 1,000 people that would apply. And honestly, 85% we'd have to turn down. So with that being said, maybe they didn't do a good job, posting exactly what's on what the needs are for that position, or like sometimes you could have kick out questions, so then it would automatically, kick that person out. But you could waste a lot of time sourcing through those unwanted applicants. So, and then also I put this in bold because I think it's really important, is that relying too heavily on postings can create the impression of limited engagement with talent. So you're just waiting, you set them up for a screening and that's kind of it. So, it's not just a recruiting strategy because it relies on waiting for candidates to apply rather than proactively sourcing and engaging with top talent. So that's why I say it could be a waste of time. And then, like I mentioned, I just, when I looked up the numbers, I was like, wow, only 30% are looking for a job. I mean, I'm sure it goes up and down, but it was really eye-opening. And for me as a recruiter, it's exciting that 70% are not looking, but they might be interested and they might be that perfect person. So, um,
Lori, just to jump in here quick, you're mentioning the word engagement, about engaging with candidates. And Jennifer Chandler, she has a really great question. I thought I'd throw it
yeah.
out here to you, about around managing engagement when you are sourcing for a high volume company, and there's lots of candidates that you're receiving. How do you engage with so many people?
It's hard to do that. So say for instance, you're looking for a general manager of a restaurant, right? You may get a ton of applicants, and how do you weed through that? So there's a couple different ways. I mean, if you I would kind of categorize them as far as, are they folks that fit the criteria of the company and of the job? If they don't, I mean, you don't have to keep that engagement. You can, it can be, all right, thank you, we'll keep you on file, kind of that strategy. But the folks say there's 20% of those that, have potential and could be a good fit. You can engage with them by, does your company have a newsletter? Connect with them on LinkedIn. Have, when they post something, like it, or they get a new job or a promotion, just respond to it, because honestly, they're thinking, wow, I applied for a job there, I didn't get it, but they're still keeping in contact with me. Or if you have a really good ATS system, sometimes you can set it up where they're getting content to their email, like, hey, Buffalo Wild Wings is having a special. It could just be something like that, or a coupon, but they're just kind of continually keeping them engaged.
Okay, thank you.
I hope does that answer the question?
Yeah, those were some great examples, I think.
Okay. Okay. So let me see. And then a little bit more about like why source and networking. So access to passive candidates. Like I said, 70% of folks are not looking, but you never know, right? For recruiters or yourself as hiring managers that are on LinkedIn looking for people to fill a position, sometimes people are not updating their LinkedIn profiles. They might actually be looking for work. That just happened to me with a software position I filled a couple weeks ago. Literally, I reached out to a ton of people. I had 5 interviews scheduled. 4 of them were actively looking for a job, but I couldn't tell from their LinkedIn profile. So when you find a good candidate, reach out because you never know. Plus, you got to hook them in too with something that, that why did it attract you to their profile? You have to make it personal. So um, explain the relationships for future hiring needs. There's also an example that I talked about Felicia with too, is that if you have a good ATS system and you had top 5 candidates and you hire one person, but the next person, we used to call the silver medalist. And if you code them in the system or you track them on a spreadsheet, you have somebody to go back to in case, that gold medalist could get promoted, they could leave the company, and you already have somebody that you can, correspond with, especially if you've been, liking their post or checking in with them once in a while. If I have somebody that is like amazing, but maybe they couldn't move at this time or something, I'm constantly checking in with them. Happy holidays, just want to check in. Are you still looking for an opportunity? Short and sweet, it goes a long way. So, and that person like could get a newsletter or any kind of promotions or things like that. And then employment branding. So this is so important to me because I can honestly say at Duncan, they had how many countries they were in wrong for so many years. So like 2012, we were like in 2020. So candidates and the good candidates are doing research on the company. So it's really up to everybody. I understand like if you're not recruiters, but you're part of the process and you work for the company, you want to make sure that the branding is correct. So if you're up and coming, QSR brands that has 250 locations, but your website still says 120, it doesn't list all the states. Like these are things that really can matter to a candidate, right? The attention to detail. So double check the facts, reach out to your communications person, say, hey, something needs to be changed on the website. So, and then kind of going back to building relationships and passive candidates, I do have a story to share, and it kind of includes engaging with a passive candidate, building a relationship with that person, and getting the hiring manager involved. And it's actually on my LinkedIn too, because they did a story on it. So I was looking for a digital marketing manager, and this is a long time ago when everybody wasn't a digital marketing manager. And I was sourcing on LinkedIn. I found this girl, Brandy, and I was like, her experience looks great. She looks like a fun person. Like it was just everything just kind of clicked. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to her and ask her if she'd be willing to, chat about the position. And her response was, do I have to move to Boston? And I said, yeah, you would have to move to Boston. She's like, I don't think I'm ready to move out of Atlanta. And I said, well, just talk to me. It's only a half-hour conversation. It can't hurt. And she said, all right. So we chatted on the phone and she was like, oh, this seems like really exciting. After I got off the phone with her, she emailed me. She said, okay, I'm thinking of moving to Boston, right? And I was like so excited because now I got to share with the hiring manager, like, look, I sourced this passive candidate. She's willing to relocate. Let's, get her in front of you real quick. So then I went back to Brandon. She's like, I don't know, it is a big move. And I said, just talk to the hiring manager. I'm like, she's awesome. You would learn so much from her. Okay, I'll just talk to her. And then we flew her in, and she said when she left, she was like crying in the cab going back. She's like, I want that position so bad. And she did. She moved to Boston. And she said part of the reason why she decided to make that big move in her career and like leave Atlanta and come to Boston is because of me, and also because of the hiring manager. Got on the phone with her, and once she got the offer, reached right out to her saying, how can I help you? Like, if you take this position, how can I help you with your transition? And that made a world of difference. And I have like a ton of stories like that, but that's like what kind of drives me. And like I said, I know you're all not, recruiters, but when you have those kickoff meetings with your recruiter, or just thinking of yourself, that you are responsible for hiring for your team, really think about some of the things we talked about today about building relationships, um, engagements, thoughtful, emails out to that person to engage with them, and continue that process, and keeping check in with your recruiting team and your TA team. Like, what are you doing different to find me the best candidates? And
And Lori, you mentioned those things, and those are things, by the way, that anybody could do, right? If you don't have a large TA team, maybe
yeah,
you are the TA team and the
right.
trainer and you're wearing several hats. These are still tips that can be utilized. And if you're creating training for your organization or your training managers, these are things that could be incorporated in those training resources to let them know that and is anyone can do the email or do those, keep those connects going and keep that messaging going. And a lot
Yeah,
of I find, I see even through some of the social media individuals I follow, that they do a lot of that. You one of the last bullet points that you have on here is around the employer branding. And one thing that I always kind of think about is the operations piece. And now I go back to my operator and training operations, as many individuals on the call today are. And so that having strong operations is part of that employer brand. If someone comes in or they have a negative experience from a customer perspective or guest perspective, that in their minds may think, well, gosh, what would it be like to work here? The same thing too can be part of the recruiting process in that employer brand. If I have an experience going through the recruiting process and or interviewing process, and as a potential candidate, and it's not the best experience, maybe I don't hear from people, or things get shuffled, and sessions get rescheduled, then I may think, gosh, if it's like that as part of just going before I'm even on board or hired, what is it really going to be like to work there? So
right.
that employer branding and the operations, and how we manage operations from especially the guest facing piece of that, but also when thinking about those candidates, how those that process goes can really speak to what is that brand image like.
Yeah, I mean, you hit a couple good points there. And in fact, I've had a candidate say to me, I've waited enough time for them to get back to me. I would never come work there. And I
Mm,
give that feedback to the hiring manager. Like, hey, I've been texting you, calling you, basically annoying you for 4 weeks to talk to this candidate for the second
mm,
round. And you keep pushing it out. And now they don't want to work. And honestly, their response was like, what? I mean, I'm busy. And you know what? As a candidate, like when all of you have been candidates at one point, you're important too, right? Your time's
mhm,
important. And if you get that feeling that that's what it's going to be like, it's probably going to be like that.
mhm.
So I know it can be eye-opening. I do it all the time. I'm like coaching hiring managers on, you know, what to do. And I totally get it. Some people are super swamped and I'm there to help them through the process. And sometimes you just need a little bit of guidance. But stuff like this is a really good reminder whether, you are your own TA team or not. So, so tips to elevate the recruiting efforts. So start with a plan to target the right candidate. And I always tell people first, you should be looking at internal equity, right? Do you have somebody that can fill this position and then backfill their position? That's important just for the morale sometimes of the team, right? Somebody's getting promoted. Are they ready to get promoted? If not, then we go to recruiting and we go to looking at applicants and we go to look at passive candidates. So start with a plan to target the right candidate. The job description shouldn't really be a honey-do list. Sometimes they're 3 pages, 4 pages long. It should really be define the must-have skills, experience, and kind of talk a little bit about the culture fit because that's really important to everybody. Understand the company's needs, what success looks like in this role, develop a sourcing strategy to reach active and passive candidates. For me, I always ask a hiring manager, or if you like, Felicia said, if you're your TA person, think about the best person on your team and then look for somebody like that person or ask them, do you know somebody? Because I really think you're a standout. Do you know somebody that is like you that wants to join our team? Or sometimes I'll ask the hiring manager, I'm like, do you have the resume of your top performer? I like to take a look at that. So, and then, like I said, develop a sourcing strategy to reach active and passive candidates. Don't just post and pray. Again, actively seek out talent. You can use it through LinkedIn, referrals, industry connections. Engage in passive candidates who aren't applying but will be a good fit. Build a talent pipeline for current and future hiring needs. It could be a spreadsheet. I mean, it's great if you have a really good ATS system that can kind of, flag certain people. And then prioritize a strong candidate experience, communicate clearly, and keep candidates engaged through the process. There's nothing worse than seeing on LinkedIn about people saying, I went through 8 rounds of interviews and I never heard from anybody. Or,
Ouch.
yeah, I see that all the time and it drives me crazy. And I do that sometimes at night. I'll sit there because I'm working with a client right now that's not really responsive. And I have a lot of candidates. And every 2 days I'm reaching out to them, just some touch point. And it's easy to do. Ensure a smooth interview process with timely feedback. Really think about your interview process. I could go on and on. So think about your interview process, right? Because one thing you don't want to hear from a candidate is I spoke to 5 people, they all asked me the same questions. Like collaborate with your team. Somebody asks more behavioral, somebody asks, skill set, somebody asks, whatever it is, kind of like mix it up a little bit. And sometimes they'll say, well, I want to see if they answer the same question right, the same every single time. I'm like, that's just not right.
We could do a
Um,
whole webinar on that alone.
I
I'm
totally
sure,
could. I
I'm sure
totally
those are who are creating training on interviewing skills. That's another piece adding there.
I
I did
definitely
want to
could.
I did want to go back to what point you were talking about around how are you reaching out when you're building that talent pipeline, and this is something that I always find, and I'm sure that many of those on the webinar this afternoon, especially if you're in that space of providing training for those frontline managers or people or individuals in the field, and you've got multiple units, they're out in the field, and you're trying to get them thinking about these people, that 70% who is not looking for a job, right? But are great,
Yeah,
could be a great fit for a role you have. And yeah, I'm sure this isn't new to some people, but I've been guilty of, even for just recruiting for individual locations, and I may be in training traveling in an area. If I have a great customer experience somewhere, give great guest experience, I'm guilty of passing out my card and saying, "Hey, you know, if you're ever looking to make a change, if you ever want to do something different, give me send me an email me your resume, give me a call. I'd love to
yeah,
talk to you about it." You know, it's kind of that covert ops recruiting when you have those experiences, because again, obviously those people are working, so they may not be looking for a new role, but with the right offer or having a conversation might make them interested in it. And so what are some of those types of things that people would do and can incorporate in that? Again, that's something that a frontline manager, a area manager, someone that is out in the field especially can easily do.
totally. Yeah. I mean, you could have a QR code on the back of that, right to the applicant application. You can think of a lot of different creative ways. I've done that.
Mhm.
I remember years ago going to a bank, and the bank teller was so nice and so helpful. And I was like, "Are you looking for a job? Do you want to get out of here?" You
So
know?
while we're talking about that, I would just like to quickly pause and see if there's anyone, if anyone has, if you have access to the chat or you want to put it in Q&A, some other examples that we'd love to hear from you. What are some examples you may have of being able to keep that pipeline that you are currently sharing or you thought about and wondering, hey, this could be a good strategy to think beyond the post, if you will, with
Yeah.
recruiting. And you know, that business card, passing that business card, or using those types of referrals are great tactics. If there's others, we'd love to hear those. And if you have others to share along that line, we'd like to see that too. Lindsay
Mhm.
mentioned that she delivers snacks to local co-working spaces with information. Oh, and that is a really outside of the box idea. Got to take a note of that one.
Deliver snacks to local. Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, really great idea. And it's a good way to market, especially and if you have, or if you're part of an organization, maybe that offers food products. For example, at Perkins, we have right now we're running a really delicious donut promotion. I won't go into the specifics of it, but they're pie top donuts. I'll put it that way. And
Hmm.
I've seen where managers go out and have delivered those. So maybe even plus that up to deliver a box of your own product or a sample of a product along with that information could be a great way to get some candidates going. I love those
Yeah,
ideas.
I do too. I do too. Because there's people out there. I mean, people are looking, and the fact that everybody is not on LinkedIn either. You know, it's I I talk about the application, or somebody applying, look at passive candidates, but when you're looking on LinkedIn too, that's not the only way that you can find people. And those are good examples where, hit the road, you know, hit the
And
competition.
Luke Miller mentioned that they use a dot business card that creates a contact in their phone. Oh, another great way, and a way to use that technology. Then you don't have to keep a stack of cards on you, and it has a QR link direct to the list. So now, Luke, thank you for that. I'm gonna create that card and just start doing the sharing that electronic. That's a really great
Yeah.
way to do it. Kim Moore mentions that internal promotions have been very effective in filling positions for them, and it's great for company culture because it shows that you're offering opportunities for growth. So if they aren't ready for, if a person is ready, and you gave some examples that sometimes maybe you've got that person that wants to go into marketing but they're not quite ready. Is there a way to start getting them exposure, yeah, and having a development plan to get them ready? Because they could be culturally they could be a great fit, and they hit check some of those boxes, and they could start learning things in that marketing role. And I've seen that in past lives as well,
Me
where
too.
individuals are able to move across departments by giving some of those additional assignments. So these are
Yeah,
all great ways to continue to do that.
definitely, definitely. And then employee referrals, definitely take advantage of that, which I touched on a little bit. Um, like ask your best employees,
Hmm.
you know, who do you know? Who are the top three people you worked in your last company? Because I want to reach out to them. Personalize your outreach. We talked a little bit about that, but not just like a canned email, not just a one-liner, not personalized. If you are a recruiter, like I would think that you're pulling something out from their profile. If they're a runner, it's like, oh, I saw that
Hmm.
you're a runner. Have you ever been to Boston and done the Boston Marathon? Or, you volunteer at this charity. Like, I love that charity. Something that they're going to be like, wow, they actually really looked at my profile instead of just looking at the title and just sending off things. So personalizing your outreach, whether it be on LinkedIn or like through Google or other ways, is very important.
And that
So
would be an example even of Renee Pierpoint just shared that some of the same leave behind gifts you touched a little bit about. Salespeople might leave something, that sales managers leave, being able to leave some things in event spaces could again good way to just whoever's cleaning up that event space room, or the next sales manager coming through might be looking for a sales manager of your property. Those
yeah,
could be ways to be able to personalize it. It's definitely a different way, and it catches people's attention.
yeah. You have to be a little bit creative. So so really focus on hiring, retaining the right people by making them feel valued. That's important to remember too. Have them feel valued from the start because they're interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them. And then tools, resources, and then questions and answers. So I did put my email address on here. If you want to take a picture of it, if you want to just write it down now for a few, I'll leave it on here for a few minutes. I did create a two-pager, which kind of outlines some tips and tricks as far as like, recruiting, different websites that you can go on, just like I just kind of put a lot of different information in there that might be helpful to you. Um, so tools for it has a bunch of information about tools for sourcing and the links that go to those sources. Um, LinkedIn Recruiter, if you're familiar with it, it's best for sourcing passive candidates, messaging and filtering by skills, location, experience, social media. It depends on what the job is, right? Social media might be the way, Facebook. I've tried everything with some positions, very niche positions that I didn't think I'd ever take, but looking for like a shipping operations coordinator for a glass blowing company. They're in Norwood. I found a Norwood is Everything Facebook page and posted on that. There are different towns that have different pages that you can post on. There's a business, Boston Business Women's group, and I'm sure there are other states too, and people share information all the time. So, and I get a lot of good information from there too. So just about looking at different pages and companies that do things a little bit differently. And then job boards. I know a lot of you, if you're in the restaurant industry or hospitality, you're probably using Indeed, you're probably using ZipRecruiter or Career Builder, and those are, fine as well. And important to just make sure that you put the right content on there. And then AI automation tools, kind of new to people, right? But like Hire Easy, which used to be Hire Actual, which is an AI powered sourcing tool that I have a link on that as well. And then Boolean search strings and Chrome extensions. So you can have certain Chrome extensions that will, take you to different, like Rocket Reach. I use Rocket Reach, and I think I put that on there too. I use the free version. Not that I'm cheap, just that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I have found great candidates on there. In Rocket Reach, you just kind of put in data like what you're looking for, general manager, Boston, Mass, a couple different things, and it will bring you a list of candidates, or profiles, I should say, and it will have a link on there that says LinkedIn, and it will link you right to their LinkedIn profile. So it's kind of a cool, just extra thing that you can use. And sometimes I can't find those people on LinkedIn, but I'm seeing them on Rocket Reach. So it's about playing around different things. So um, and then referral and talent communications, employee referral programs, encourage your network to recommend, top 3 candidates, like I mentioned before, and then niche industry specific platforms. And some of you may already know this because you're in training, but GitHub, Stack Overflow is ideal for sourcing tech and engineering talent, but then Behance and Dribbble is best for finding more of the creative talent. So if like graphic artist, and instructional design manager, they could have profiles and portfolios out on Behance or Dribbble that you can look up, and then you can look them up on LinkedIn or other ways too.
Is
And
that, Laura, you talk
then,
about those industry niche boards or places where people are posted. Yeah, I have to throw in another industry niche organization for those hospitality trainers. And that's, of course, that's the Council of Hotel and Restaurant Trainers. And Chart has a job board, so members are able to, if you're seeking a role or if you're looking for a role to fill, you're able to post those, especially if those are training specific, able to have those posts shared through the chart website, and other members may see that. So another way to get at the niche, or for particular roles within our industry itself. So add that one to your one list, your page or list there, Lori.
definitely. And there is a page on LinkedIn. It's just like QSR restaurants, restaurant jobs. So you can really find different ways to just connect to different pages on LinkedIn. And sometimes they'll let you post something. Sometimes people say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," and it might be the person that you need to connect with.
Yeah, thank you
And
for those.
always
That were
ask for referrals. I ask people I don't even know for referrals all the time.
that hey, if you those making that ask is always a great way to do it. I know we're getting close to the end of time here. I do want to make sure I pause here and just give us a chance for anyone who has any questions, particular questions specific that you'd like to ask of Laura. You can put it in the QA or drop it in the chat, and she'll be happy to answer any of those questions if you're looking for tips. As in addition to that, if you have a tip or a tool or resource that you've used in the past that's worked really well, and would like to drop that into the chat, that'd be great too. And we can continue to share those resources with each other. That's one of the great things about Chart is how we share tools and share those tips with each other. So if you have some of those, feel free to add those in there. While they're doing that, Lori, I have a question. So you did mention AI tools for recruiting, and AI is something that everybody talks about. We talk about at Chart
Yep.
at our conferences, even how to use AI for actual interviewing tools. And so you mentioned a few
Yeah.
particular ones. Have you personally seen success in being able to recruit, especially some of those niche candidates for a client you're using? Maybe an example, if you have, of how an AI tool in particular worked for you.
Yeah, I mean, I am like a smaller business, right? It's just
Mhm.
me. I haven't invested in any AI tool, but I use Chat GPT a lot.
Mhm. Oh,
And I think it's super helpful. There's a lot of times I'll have a client reach out to me that um, is like, "Oh yeah, I want them to do, I want a candidate to do this, this, and that." And I'm like, "Do you have a job description?" No. And I can ask it to, give me an outline, and then I can send it to the hiring manager and say, basically fill in the blanks. You can ask it to do a Boolean search string based on a job description. If you're going to be sourcing, I have tested, a bunch of different things. I've downloaded the job description and asked for what other titles could a candidate be under. So even though it's a, general manager or a data analyst, if I just keep looking for data analyst, I might only get this much, but if I expand to like analysts, and other keywords, like ChatGPT is going to give me like 10 different like job titles that goes by. And then that helps me source those passive candidates even more. So that's how I use AI as far as like a recruiting tool. And I
Mhm.
think it's super helpful. I've taken clients, and that's not even part of like what I'm supposed to be doing for them, but I'm like, let me just tidy up this job description. Or, you know, if somebody hasn't interviewed before, you know, download the job description and ask GBT, what are the 6 most important questions I should be asking based on this job description?
Oh wow. So that's so using the tool in addition to helping to source people, rewriting job descriptions, which I think is
Yeah.
a phenomenal idea, but also
Yep.
using that to help with interview prep. Gosh, that's so that just goes beyond, it definitely goes beyond the posting. I had a couple questions that are coming in. I want to throw these at you here. Edmund wants to know, what do you think about hiring events on college campuses?
I think it depends on what you're looking for. If you're
Hmm.
looking for more entry level, like your company has, marketing coordinators or like junior sales, team members, I think it can be good. And it gets, if it's going to take a couple hours of your time and you might get something out of it, it can be worth it. I mean, I've been to some that are not worth it because and it's not because I'm unorganized. I mean, I'm not super organized, but it's not because I'm unorganized. It's because the venue or whatever was very unorganized. So like people didn't even know they were having a job fair, things like that. But if it's reputable, I would say, go for it. And see what you get out of it. You
Okay.
might get one hire, you might get no hires, but you might make a lot of connections. And that's the thing
Hmm.
about relationships and engagement is that, and I do it all the time. Like I know this person's not really a good fit, but I think they have people that I might be interested in their
Hmm.
network. And then you reach out, great to meet you, at whatever, job event. I know like we probably don't have a position for you, but do you know anybody that might be a good fit? Let's stay connected. Something simple
Okay.
like that. And sometimes people will.
Mhm. All right, great, thank you. And Franklin Escobar asks, LinkedIn is great to find high skill prospects. Where do you go for team members on the QSR hospitality industry? So those quick service restaurants, i.e., fast food, if you will.
Yeah.
Where do you go to get some of those team members?
Yeah. That can be hard to
They
do.
aren't on LinkedIn in many cases, right?
And if they are on LinkedIn, they have not been active and their email is
Okay.
probably outdated as well. So you can go to Rocket Reach or you can go to contact out and find somebody's email address, sometimes phone
Oh,
numbers, and reach out to them directly. So you might see them on LinkedIn, you might see them on Indeed or certain um other job boards or recruiting
mhm.
tools. But if they're not answering you, they're probably not active. But you can find ways, so if I go to Rocket Reach and I type in Felicia White, Dr. Felicia White, and it's going to come up where she currently works. And then it's like a free trial. You can click on a button, you can get their email address, and it will tell
Oh,
you
wow.
like 100%, like this is where she works, this is personal. I've reached out to people on Instagram before, like the president of Crunch Fitness. He didn't respond, so sometimes it always doesn't work. But I gave it a shot, right? You gotta keep trying. So that's kind of how I like general managers. Like I wouldn't use Craigslist. I think that's gone and out the door. Um, but as I mentioned before, I don't know if you were on then, but look, if you're on Facebook or something, I think everybody's on Facebook. I don't know. I'm part of the older crowd, so I still am.
The
Look
Facebook.
for, yeah, look for the page, like look for pages that,
Mhm.
Dedham, Mass jobs or, Phoenix, Arizona jobs. And then sometimes you'll get a list of like a bunch of pages in Arizona, and you might find one, and sometimes you might just have to ask the moderator, like, can I post a job on this? Um, and they might be like, yeah, and that can work for like general managers and team members of restaurants.
Mhm. Okay, well, those are great examples. And now, in addition to Googling myself and seeing what comes up, I'm going to have to rocket reach myself as well. So, well, thank you
I
so
know.
much, Lori, for answering those questions. And we want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I think we have one more slide
We do.
to go towards, and I'll just kind of give my plug again, if you will, for some upcoming events with Chart. Of course, if you've not had a chance, like, go to our page, www.chart.org. You went there. Those of you who joined us, a few, maybe you registered for the webinar today through posting, but we also have our webinars posted on our website. You're able to go, you can see we've got 2 coming up, one in March, one in April as well. There's also links to our upcoming conferences. We'll be, in just a few short weeks, we'll be in Louisville, Kentucky with our hospitality training competencies conference. So this is an opportunity for the train the trainer, if you will, and do some pouring into yourself and really learn how to be a stronger trainer and be able to create stronger training programs, complete those competencies. For those of you who may be in the process of working on them, maybe you attended one virtually, this is your opportunity to join, and there's still room to register. So feel free to join. And then coming up later this summer in August 3rd through the 6th, we will be in Redondo Beach, California. So if you notice the volleyball there, we don't have a beach volleyball breakout session as of yet. Maybe that's something we'll have to discuss, Tara. But please think about joining us for that conference as well. That will give you an opportunity to learn more best practices, what's occurring in the industry, and ways to really drive, again, stronger training programs. And then there's tons of resources that you'll continue to see. You can always read through the articles that go out, the training articles that go out. There's a lot of LinkedIn activity, Lori, for Chart. So follow the Chart page on LinkedIn, be able to continue to connect with the group that way, as well as in our Instagram and Facebook, the Facebook social media pages that we have there too. And so again, thank you everyone for joining this afternoon. I look forward to seeing those of you who will be in Louisville in person there, continuing to engage with you virtually as well. Lori, would you like to say anything as we wrap up?
No, I just put in the chat. I hope, everybody got at least a takeaway from this. And I added my email address again if you want that 2-pager of just kind of like tips and tricks. Or if you have any questions, definitely reach out. Or if your company needs some help filling those critical roles or hard to fill positions, I'd love to help.
All right, thank you so much. And I agree you'd be a great resource, and I appreciate your sharing with us. And hopefully some of you are able to now do as I did and change your ways and be able to go away from posting and praying to actually get involved in more engaged in the recruiting process. So have a great afternoon, and look forward to connecting with you at the next chart event.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
thanks everyone. Bye.